2025 and 2026 are stacked with terrifyingly real horror games. And if you're hyped for Resident Evil 9, you're definitely going to want to see what's on this list. Let's kick things off with ILL. After a long stretch of radio silence, ILL finally clawed its way back into view at Summer Game Fest. And yeah, it was worth the wait. This survival horror game is leaning all the way into body horror, with grotesque aberrations twisting through rotting labs, limbs getting torn apart in gruesome detail, and a mood so thick it practically drips off the screen. It's built with physics-driven gore, dismemberment systems, and binaural audio that messes with your sense of direction, all designed to make sure the fear sticks with you long after the screen fades to black. You're trapped in a research facility that's way past the point of no return, trying to reach something, or someone, that still matters. It's the debut title from Team Clout, powered by the Mundfish Powerhouse Initiative. Yes, the Atomic Heart crew. And it's swinging hard for that raw, immersive horror vibe. No release date yet, but IL's return alone is a statement. And if the game delivers on even half of what's been teased, it's going to be one of the nastiest, most unforgettable horror experiences out there. Moving up next, we have Resident Evil 9 Requiem. This one feels like a true return to form, while still pushing things forward. After years of fan debate over camera angles, Resident Evil Requiem finally lets you have it both ways. First person ramps up the dread, third person sharpens the tension, and switching between the two actually feels meaningful. But what really sells it is the atmosphere. You're Grace Ashcroft, an FBI agent trapped in a decaying medical ward where the lights flicker, the walls creak, and every step sounds like you're not alone. Early on, you've got a lighter and some glass bottles. That's it. Grace isn't here to be a hero, she's here to survive. And that vulnerability changes the vibe completely. She stumbles, panics, and flinches in fights. No over-the-top action moves, just raw fear and desperation. When the monster shows up, something straight out of Barbarian, it hits hard. First person makes it feel like you're cornered. Third person gives you more awareness, but not much safety. Either way, it's intense. With smart lighting, killer sound design, and a terrifying new creature stalking the halls, Requiem is shaping up to be one of the boldest and scariest Resident Evil entries in years. Up next, we have Ritual Tides. You know a horror game's doing something right when it goes quiet and still manages to make noise. Ritual Tides is the first title from Vert Paint, a new indie studio made up of ex-Rockstar, CI Games, and TT Games devs. And even without gameplay footage, it's already turning heads. Set to launch in the third quarter of 2025 for PC and consoles, the game drops players onto a remote island shrouded in mystery. There's a hint of a weapon involved, but don't expect action-heavy combat. This is survival horror with a throwback feel. More tension, more hiding, and a lot less trigger pulling. What's really grabbing attention is the studio's approach. Vert Paint is going fully independent, with no publisher in the mix, just pure creative control. They're promising handcrafted animation, original monster designs, and a focus on atmosphere over jump scares. The game's being developed through a dual-track system, one stream for gameplay, one for visual experimentation, which sounds risky, but intriguing. It's bold, mysterious, and still mostly under wraps, but if it all comes together, Ritual Tides could end up being the kind of horror gem that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Coming up next, we have Silent Hill F. Silent Hill has always thrived on what you don't see. And with Silent Hill F, that quiet dread is taking a bold new shape. This time, we're leaving the foggy streets of America behind for 1960s Japan, where a red mist rolls through a sleepy rural town. You play as Hinako, a high schooler trapped in a spiraling nightmare that's more intimate, more surreal, and somehow even more unsettling. The story leans into psychological horror and social tension, where even your closest friends might turn on you. Combat's more hands-on than before, with frantic melee encounters and twisted enemies that stagger like broken puppets. It's not about power, it's about desperation. The world shifts constantly between eerie shrines and decaying hallucinations, and the tone is pure dread from start to finish. If the gameplay reveal didn't already make you squirm, the atmosphere surely will. Launching September 25th this year on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC, Silent Hill F isn't just a reinvention. It's the kind of horror that sticks with you long after it's over. Next on the list, we have God Save Birmingham. It's not every day a game gets accused of being fake before it even lands a release date, but God Save Birmingham sparked that exact reaction. When the first gameplay trailer dropped, people couldn't believe what they were seeing. An atmospheric, physics-driven zombie survival game set in a stunningly detailed 14th century Birmingham. The comparisons to the day before came fast, but instead of backing down, the devs at Ocean Drive leaned in. They brought the game to PAX, showed more raw footage, and made one thing clear: this is real, and they plan to prove it. Built in Unreal Engine by a small team of about 28, it mixes the historical accuracy of a medieval sim with the system's heavy survival of something like Project Zomboid. You're the last survivor in a plague-ridden town, scavenging, crafting, and surviving in a world where even the vegetables are period correct. No potatoes. Those didn't exist in England yet. And yes, they're working on authentic Brummy voice acting. The game aiming for early access in 2026 with a refreshingly honest approach. No pre-orders, no overhype, just consistent updates and something people can actually play. Moving forward, we have Luto. You don't always need a haunted mansion or a fog-covered forest to feel uneasy. Sometimes the scariest place in the world is your own home. Luto, the debut from Broken Bird Games, leans hard into psychological horror, trading in monsters for memory and shock value for something way more intimate. You play as someone trapped inside their house. But this isn't about finding keys or solving puzzles. It's about what happens when the walls around you start closing in, literally and emotionally. Rooms distort, hallways stretch, and the house begins to whisper things only you should know. Instead of jump scares, Luto builds dread through surreal shifts and heavy atmosphere. It's designed to feel personal, unsettling, and grounded in themes like grief and trauma. The developers say they want it to reflect real emotional struggles, and from what we've seen so far, they're not pulling punches. Launching July 23rd on PC and consoles, the game also has a free demo live now on Steam. If you're into psychological horror that hits close to home, sometimes uncomfortably so, Luto might just be the one that sticks with you. Next up, we have Tormented Souls 2. There's something reassuring about a game that knows exactly what it wants to be, and Tormented Souls 2 is doubling down on its love for classic survival horror. Set 6 months after the events at Wildberger Hospital, Caroline Walker returns, this time heading to a remote South American town called Puerto Miller in search of a cure for her sister Anna. But like before, things spiral quickly into something much darker. You've got ancient rituals, twisted monsters, and that signature blend of fixed camera exploration and item-driven puzzle solving. It's old school in the best way, but with a few smart upgrades to keep it fresh. The sequel's leaning into more atmospheric tension, tighter puzzles, and reactive audio cues that make ambushes feel genuinely unpredictable. Combat still makes you work for it, scavenging materials to improvise weapons just like the first game, but now it's all wrapped in a major visual upgrade thanks to Unreal Engine 5. The devs are promising a story nearly 3 times the length of the original, with bigger environments and deeper world building. If you're into that slow-burn, methodical kind of horror, Tormented Souls 2 is shaping up to be one worth watching when it lands in 2025. Moving up next, we have Cronos: The New Dawn. You drop into a city that's long past saving, its silence louder than any scream. Cronos: The New Dawn starts with a familiar setup, a lone traveler arriving in a ruined Krakow, but it doesn't take long to realize this isn't just about survival. The catastrophe already happened. What's left is decay, memory, and something worse. It plays like classic survival horror, tight inventory, scarce resources, close-quarter dread, but there's a deeper emotional current here, rooted in grief, time, and a fractured sense of self. This one's deeply personal for Bloober Team. Every detail, from the streets of Noah Huda to scanned family heirlooms, is drawn from real life, turning the setting into something lived in and haunting. Enemies called orphans merge and evolve mid-combat, forcing you to adapt or get overrun fast. You've got modular gear, fire-based counters, and a constant sense that something's not right. But what really hits is the tone. Slow, mournful, and surprisingly introspective. Cronos isn't just trying to scare you. It's trying to say something. And if Bloober pulls it off, this could be one of their most resonant games yet. Up next, we have Contaminant. Some horror games want to scare you, but Contaminant? It wants to unravel you. This third-person survival horror takes place in a decaying post-Soviet factory, once owned by your character Maria's grandfather, now twisted into a maze of grief, hallucinations, and decaying steel. Reality here is thin. Walls breathe, objects vanish, and familiar spaces turn hostile without warning. As Maria digs into her family's buried history, the factory becomes less of a place and more of a living nightmare that reshapes itself around her. The game's all about psychological tension, surreal puzzles that bend logic, grotesque enemies that seem more symbolic than biological, and a narrative that pushes you to question what's real. Combat's minimal, exploration is constant, and the atmosphere is absolutely drenched in dread. With its shifting environments, haunting sound design, and a story that feels as personal as it is disorienting, Contaminant isn't just aiming for scares. It's aiming for that deep, lingering discomfort that sticks with you long after the screen fades to black. Coming up next, we have Whispers in the Fog. Waking up alone in the woods with no memory and no map is already a bad time. But Whispers in the Fog turns that into something truly unnerving. This first-person psychological horror game drops you into a dense forest wrapped in mist, where the only clues come from the disembodied whispers drifting through the air. Some of them might lead you to haunted villages or forgotten cemeteries. Others, not so much. That constant doubt, whether you're heading towards safety or straight into something awful, is what gives the game its edge. Built in Unreal Engine 5 by solo developer Pasquale Chianti, this one goes all in on atmosphere. There's no HUD, no combat, and no hand-holding, just you, a flashlight, and whatever's waiting out there in the fog. The sound design does most of the heavy lifting, with whispers, ghostly screams, and the distant rustle of something stalking you through the trees. And yes, there's a terrifying woman in white watching from above. If you're into exploration-heavy horror, where the silence feels just as dangerous as the noise, keep an eye on Whispers in the Fog when it hits PC. Next on the list, we have Silent Hill Remake. It was only a matter of time. With the Silent Hill 2 remake generating buzz, Konami's going back to where the nightmare truly began, remaking the original Silent Hill from 1999. The announcement dropped during Konami's Press Start Live showcase, and while there wasn't much to go on, just a brief teaser and that unmistakable title drop, it was enough to stir the fanbase. No gameplay yet, no release date, but the message is clear. This iconic chapter is getting a full modern revival. Bloober Team is once again leading development, following up their work on SH2 with a return to the fog-drenched streets of the original. This one centers on Harry Mason's desperate search for his daughter in a town that twists reality into something terrifying. If Bloober sticks to their formula, emphasizing psychological tension, updated mechanics, and emotional depth, we might be looking at a remake that does more than just honor the past. It could reintroduce Silent Hill to a whole new generation and bring longtime fans right back into the thick of the fog. Moving forward, we have Regeneration. You wake up alone in a sealed-off facility deep beneath a post-Soviet wasteland. Flickering lights, mold-cracked walls, and a sense that something's watching. Regeneration drops you into a third-person survival horror experience, built on silence and slow-burn dread. It's not about gore or guns. It's about what hides in the dark while you scan particles, sift through corrupted logs, and wonder whether the next locked door brings answers, or something far worse. Built in Unreal Engine 5 by Mysterial Games, this one leans into methodical survival over action. You'll use scanners to detect invisible threats, UV light to expose the unseen, and tools that let you redirect danger instead of confronting it. The world reacts, mutated organisms patrol the halls, environmental systems shift against you, and every route is a calculated risk. There's no map to victory here, no safety net. Just you, the ruins, and whatever's left waiting inside. Regeneration isn't here to entertain, it's here to crawl under your skin. Next up, we have Psycho Dead. You know a game means business when it's called Psycho Dead, and somehow it actually lives up to the name. You play as Elixia, a psychic teen trapped in a deranged sci-fi facility, trying to escape while everything around her crumbles into madness. Mutated freaks, armed guards, and some seriously messed up experiments stand in your way. And it's got the vibe of Resident Evil 4 meets Dead Space, but with the telekinetic flair of Control thrown right on top. Combat is where Psycho Dead goes all in. Elixia doesn't just shoot, she crushes, hurls, and deflects using raw psychic power. You're flinging enemies into walls, turning cover into shrapnel, and bending the fight to your will. It's fast, aggressive third-person action with puzzles and upgrades that make you feel smarter and more dangerous the longer you play. There's no release date yet, but the Steam page is already live, and based on what we've seen, this one's got real teeth. If you're into high-impact horror with a psychic edge, keep your eyes on it. Up next, we have Directive 8020. You don't name a game Directive 8020 unless something's gone very, very wrong, and Supermassive's next horror entry wastes no time letting you know it has. This one kicks off on Tau Ceti F, a distant planet meant to be humanity's next home. But the moment your colonist crew lands, it's clear something's off. There's a presence here, alien, shifting, and able to impersonate your team. Think Alien meets The Thing, with all the mistrust, dread, and body horror that comes with it. But this isn't your standard walk-and-talk thriller. Directive 8020 introduces stealth mechanics, a new turning point system that lets you rewind decisions, and a brutal survival mode where death is permanent and rewinds are off the table. There's also a death spiral setup that can wipe out your entire cast early, giving each episode real stakes. It's still cinematic, still full of tough calls and tense moments, but this time, you're not just watching things fall apart. You're right in the middle of it. Launches October 2nd, 2025. Coming up next, we have Ground Zero. Sometimes all it takes is a fixed camera, a ruined skyline, and a thick layer of fog to get horror fans right back in the zone. Ground Zero leans all the way into that retro survival horror feel, but gives it a fresh setting, post-apocalyptic South Korea. You're dropped into the wreckage of Busan 2 months after a mysterious meteor hit, playing as an elite Korean operative and her Canadian partner as they step into the zone. What they find? Mutated horrors that aren't just evolving, they're watching. From chunky melee combat to fixed angles and resource-scarce tension, this is classic PS1-era horror with modern tweaks. You'll earn genome points for smarter kills, use them to upgrade, and face off against monsters that feel like they crawled straight out of your worst fever dreams. There's full difficulty customization, tank control toggles, alternate outfits, and even secret endings for the hardcore crowd. It's coming to Steam, no date yet, but Ground Zero is already shaping up to be a love letter to the old school, with just enough bite to stand on its own. Next on the list, we have Liminal Point. It starts with a voicemail, and ends in a nightmare that feels all too familiar. Liminal Point is a psychological survival horror game heading to PC, and if you're into that classic dread-soaked vibe, this one's worth keeping an eye on. You play as Lyra Sterling, returning to the fog-drenched island of Ashen Point, where her band broke up, her life fell apart, and something else never really left. Now the town's crumbling, the streets are empty, and the silence feels personal. Whatever's waiting for her, it's not just in her head. The game leans hard into old-school horror, tight resources, deliberate pacing, and a constant sense of decay. There's clear DNA from Silent Hill and Fatal Frame, but it's not just playing the hits. The isometric camera adds a unique layer to exploration, and the monsters aren't just out to kill. They're symbolic, twisted reflections of Lyra's past. With eerie sound design, dense atmosphere, and a story that blurs memory and nightmare, Liminal Point feels like one of those slow burns that stays with you. It's aiming for a 2026 release on Steam. Moving forward, we have Holstin. There's something deeply unnerving about a horror game that messes with your sense of space before anything even jumps out. And Holstin is all about that. Developed by Polish studio Sonka, it's a survival horror game that blends PS1-era visuals with some clever modern tricks. At first glance, it looks retro. Fixed angles, grainy textures, but then you rotate the camera, and suddenly the world feels off. Doors shift, shadows stretch weirdly, and you realize you're not seeing the full picture. That tension between old-school feel and fresh design is where Holstin really thrives. You play as Tomasz, tracking down a missing friend in a sleepy Polish town swallowed by something called plasmodium, an ooze that corrupts people and place alike. Combat switches to an over-the-shoulder view, giving you control without sacrificing the dread. The atmosphere is thick. The story leans into psychological horror and social themes, and even the way you move through the town feels designed to keep you on edge. A recent demo showed solid improvements in pacing and mechanics, and with a release slated for late 2025 on PC, Holstin might just earn a spot alongside the genre's modern standouts. Next up, we have Dying Light the Beast. It's not often a long-running zombie franchise decides to shake things up completely, but that's exactly what's happening with the next Dying Light. Instead of just doubling down on melee weapons and rooftop parkour, this sequel throws in guns, stealth gear, and even superhuman mutations, giving you way more ways to survive and cause absolute mayhem. One moment you're creeping through a militia camp with a bow, the next you're torching a horde with a flamethrower. It's still gritty, still fast, but now there's a whole new layer of freedom. Kyle Crane returns after more than a decade of in-world experiments, mutated into something no longer fully human. You'll pull off slow-mo leaps, crush enemies with seismic slams, and tear through groups like a monster out of control. With improved stealth, evolving enemies, dynamic weather, and a darker tone overall, this new chapter looks like it's bringing serious heat to the genre. Dying Light's world was already dangerous. Now it feels downright unhinged. Launching in 2025. Moving up next, we have Becrowned. There's no shortage of indie horror games channeling the classics these days, but every now and then, one feels like it actually crawled out of the late 90s. That's the energy Becrowned brings. A grim, retro-styled survival horror game that wears its Silent Hill inspiration proudly. From the moment you step into its fog-soaked hospital corridors, everything clicks into place. Staggering enemies, creepy puzzles, and that grainy VHS-style grime that makes every room feel like it's decaying in real time. The demo sticks to familiar territory. Melee fights, limited ammo, and haunting exploration. But it's not just a rehash. There's an undercurrent of literary symbolism and deeper psychological tension that hints at something more. It's still early, and yeah, it follows Konami's shadow pretty closely right now. But if 13th Street Studio can break through that and tap into a voice of its own, Becrowned might not just echo the greats, it could stand shoulder to shoulder with them when it finally launches. And finally, we have Code Violet. If there's one thing horror fans can't resist, it's dinosaurs tearing their way back into the spotlight. And that's exactly what Team Kill Media is going for with Code Violet. Known for quantum error, the studio is shifting gears from sci-fi to full-blown survival horror, this time dropping players into a facility overrun with genetically revived monsters. You'll step into the shoes of Violet Sinclair, facing off against raptors, a towering T-Rex, and even a massive crocodile. All nods to the long-dormant Dino Crisis series that clearly helped inspire the chaos. While Code Violet brings back retro Dino terror in style, not everyone's getting an invite. Team Kill has confirmed it'll launch exclusively on PS5 this July, with no PC version planned, a choice that's already stirred up backlash. The devs say they're avoiding PC modding communities that might create vulgar versions of the characters, and they're standing firm on protecting their actors and artistic vision. It's a controversial move, but one that shows they're committed to doing things their way. Either way, this one's already on the radar for fans hungry for more tooth and claw horror. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified when I upload new content. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And check out these other videos you might like. See you in the next one.